So we are going to open up the meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kma'ki First Nation. Call to order. Now, Councillor Mattard has to leave, so he will not be here for the whole presentation. So he just wanted to give you a forewarning. And I appreciate that you came out today to listen to this presentation. So any declarations of conflict of interest? None. There's one item on the agenda. It's a presentation by Tweel Company Properties in regards to proposed redevelopment of the Queen Street Parkade. So I need someone to move that. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Beck. All in favor? Great. So Chris and I think it's Philip Goodfellow with you, Chris Tweel. Can you just come up here to this mic, and Philip, Chris, anytime that you're speaking, because it's live stream, you have to, as Wayne is showing you right now, Wayne Long is,
Press this button.
yeah, and it turns red, and that's a hot button, so don't press it all.
Is that to record?
No, you're a live stream. Yeah, and I just want to also, yeah.
I don't know if my age will allow that. Okay, so you want me to start?
Please start. Presentation by Chris Tweel and Philip Goodfellow.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you for coming, everyone. I think you all have received an advanced copy of the drawings that we've done so far. But just to give you a bit of a recap, I'm not sure if you all realize the work we've been doing in Charlottetown. We've done a number of projects around renovating our buildings that we've been working on for 100 years, I guess. And I should point out Phil Goodfellow, we've been working together for many years. Phil was actually what was your role? You were lead something on the McGuinness Cooper project. So he's very familiar with Charlottetown. He's done a lot of work throughout Atlantic Canada in other sectors, very involved in housing, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI. And actually, you've been coming to PEI every summer now for what, 15 years?
About 15, yeah.
Yeah, so he's very, very knowledgeable about PEI. We had a great time doing the McGuinness Cooper building, and we want to build on that. We've owned the land that surrounds the parkade for many, many years. And when we saw this request for proposal, well, we had a big file to pull out because the city's actually been approaching us for 13 years to do something in terms of expanding the parkade. We actually had, I think, 2 offers from the city to buy parts of the property we own, and for some reason it never materialized or fulfilled itself. So when we saw this, we thought, what an opportunity not just to do the parkade, but take some of our property and expand on the project exponentially and add not just what the parking we have, but about 150, just shy of 150 additional parking spots. And phase 1 would be an additional 40 apartment units or residential units of some type, and some large scale retail and commercial. And we also are trying to integrate some cultural space. There's lots of need for cultural space. We have tenants who are cultural tenants. And we think we've got something going here that could add to the city. I think Phil's probably better to talk about the design than I am, so I think I'm just going to hand it over to Phil.
Okay.
And you've got the clicker.
I've got the clicker.
So those aren't pointed the right way, are they?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, you have it on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
So Phil, you.
Okay. So we have the presentation up. Mayor Brown, councillors, thank you for giving us the opportunity to walk you through our proposal. The way we've put together the slide deck today really mimics a little bit the RFP response that we presented or that we submitted. So this presentation will walk you through, give you some context if you haven't had an opportunity to look at it yet. We have time. I'd like to ask a little bit, how much time do we have here today? Because we can move relatively quickly to allow for time for questions or go through areas in detail.
Philip, just let her go.
I'll let her go, okay. So as I said, this is an outline of our agenda. You'll have the slide deck for your reference in the future. Just from a team introduction perspective, Chris Tweel already introduced himself from Tweelco. I'm Phil Goodfellow, partner at G Architects. We're located in Toronto, but we do work nationally, in particular here in Atlantic Canada. There's also some team members here who are key to the proposal but aren't here with us today. So Kenyon Jin is a senior architect in our office. He would be the lead from an architectural perspective. And then we also have our collaborators and partners from Pomerleau Construction, who I'll talk a little bit about later in the presentation. So a little bit about our team. It's a little strange for me to stand here and talk a little bit about Tweelco, because I think many of you know Chris quite well. But as you know, they're an established landlord and commercial developer here in Charlottetown, founded in 1920. They have a long history of successful developments. Chris talked a little bit about the work we did together previously at McInnes Cooper and the Launchpad. And then the focus of this proposal is really about the several parcels of land adjacent or behind the Queen Street Parkade and the joint opportunities that there are both for the City of Charlottetown and for Tweelco in our submission. Just a little bit about G Architects. So though we were founded in 2014, we have a proven track record of successfully delivering projects across Canada. We've completed projects in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and Ontario. We're currently pursuing projects in Saskatchewan and always look to Manitoba. Oh, and BC, actually, just reminding myself. We always look to engage the community in the development of the projects that we work on. Many of them are in the residential sector, and we really look to the community to understand what are some of the key drivers for it. The other piece of it is we always look at addressing the goals of a municipality from an urban design perspective. So we look at that, and that's integral to a lot of our projects. And as we said already, we've collaborated in the past, approximately 8 years ago with Tweelco and Chris Tweel Architect for the McInnes Cooper Launchpad building. Key elements of our collaboration is really a commitment to design excellence. It's interesting that we put that one up first, because that is a core commitment for us. We really want to develop a high quality building on the Tweelco lands, enhance the existing Queen Street Parkade, to develop some civic pride around its frontage on the street, on Queen Street. We also, and this is engendered a little bit through G Architects, we have an emphasis on project planning. We look to schedule projects for successful project delivery, not only through the design and planning phase, but also through the construction. That's why we actually reached out to our collaborative partners at Pomerleau to help us develop an implementation plan for this project. G Architects has successfully delivered 2 long-term care homes with Pomerleau Construction in Newfoundland, and we're looking to enhance that collaboration with this project. Finally, there's a little bit about Charlottetown. We want to look at this project as being both born of Charlottetown.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
A little bit more on Pomerleau.
Oh.
I mean, Pomerleau is very active here, and they're very, very interested in this project. They're currently doing the Daniel J. McDonald renovation, and they did the Jean Canfield building. So they're very familiar with the trades here, and we really like working with them. So
Yeah.
we've dealt with them in the past, and we're very happy about their interest in this project.
And
I think
Palmier Lowe did the Northumberland condos
they did that.
on Pond, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, those are some of the pieces I was going to speak to in the future, so it's good to bring them up now. The other key piece of our proposal is it's not solely about the Queen Street Parkade. We're looking to support and enhance livability in the City of Charlottetown's core. That's creating greater opportunity for economic and social well-being through enhancing both retail, commercial, and residential on the property, in our proposal. This is a little bit of a makeup of our team from our proposal, and I just wanted to highlight key elements. Obviously, you can see G Architects and Chris Tweel Architect as the key elements of the architectural services for it. but then also, as Chris mentioned, Parmelo as the construction manager, who are currently working on the Department of Veterans Affairs building. We've also brought to our team the structural consultant who has been working on your previous reports for building science and restoration of the parking garage, RJC. RJC engineers and G-Architects have an extensive collaboration in projects in Ontario and in Nova Scotia. We have over 30 projects underway with them, so we're confident in them as a partner to address the key elements of the restoration of the Queen Street parking garage or parkade. So when we look at some of the key project objectives, I'm just going to move this over a bit. Key project objectives. First is to create additional parking and housing. We actually believe that the housing component is essential because that permanent housing will support social and cultural amenities in the city. We also want to attract high caliber, stable, long-term commercial or retail services for the ground floor. That's one of the continuous goals for Twilco, is about supporting retail, commercial, and community-based services in the core. We also see this as an opportunity to expand and create reliable infrastructure service links through the site. There are a series of power and data networks that currently go through poles on the site, across multiple properties, attached to sides of buildings, trees, telephone poles. And we look at this project as being an opportunity for us to put some of those services underground to create greater resilience for extreme weather events and climate change in the future. We also see this as an opportunity to create new pedestrian connections on Queen Street, Fitzroy, Great George, and potentially through Kent Street. So that's more cross-block connections, but with meaningful connections to the parking garage. Finally, there's an opportunity for us to expand on transit options. That could be integration from a transit perspective, ride sharing, bike parking facilities, or electric car charging in the core. So when we get to some of the key facets of our proposal, as Chris said, we're looking to expand the 338 existing parking spots to add an additional 145. This is at the level of design we are. That's an estimate. Obviously, detailed design would need to be done to confirm that, but that would probably give you probably about 483 spots in the core. We also understand how important this parking facility is for the city of Charlottetown and economic development. So we've actually planned for a phased construction, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the future. Over the new portion of the new development, we've planned for approximately 40 residential units. That's a rough test fit, and that would be developed out through detailed design if we were to move this project forward. On Great George and at Fitzroy, we've planned for retail and commercial spaces. Some of the spaces, including the commercial space on Great George, are actually of significant floor plate size, that it could be an anchor tenant, potentially addressing needs for large retailers like a grocery store to provide greater food security in the city. Talked a little bit about the transit options with electric charging stations, rideshare facility, and a bicycle facility. And finally, our 24/7 connection points to the surrounding buildings. Key to our approach, and in conjunction with our construction partners at Parmelo Construction, we've developed two concurrent streams of activities. We see there's a real opportunity to both address the redevelopment of the parkade and plan for the residential development of the residential component to the north. What we've proposed is that we would prepare a restoration design for approximately 4 months. Then we would target a phased construction of the parking garage. We would look to minimize the impact to any phase closure of the parking garage. So we would look from a seasonal perspective to potentially do that work during the off seasons, meaning not the high vacation. I've lost the word for vacation. Tourist, thank you. Tourism, the high tourist season in the core. Meanwhile, in parallel with that, we would develop the initial design for the residential component, that we'd have to work with various departments of the city, Public Works, planning, to get approval before we develop the design. That phase would be constructed subsequent to the restoration of the parking garage. Now, on this slide, I've developed just a simple bubble diagram that talks from a time frame perspective. But with our partners at Parmelo Construction, they've actually put together a detailed construction schedule, which you can see we've talked about duration of tasks, start date, end dates, closures, different elements like that. All of this is, again, an initial thought on how we could execute the project. But we just wanted to demonstrate that we're looking at it from a very detailed perspective of how we would execute this work and minimize impacts to the city and the central business core. So then we get into a little bit the design of what we plan to do. So this is the proposed site plan with Great George Street on the right, Fitzroy to the top of the sheet, and Queen Street to the left-hand side. So in the beige color is the existing parking garage or parkade, which we plan on restoring. And then in the orange to the right is the extension of the parkade and the residential component. When we get into the plans here, in the plans, we've collapsed the center of the plans. That's what those two G lines in the middle. We're not showing the middle of the parking garage, but just so you can understand what we're proposing to do on the Queen Street side, and then what's being proposed at Fitzroy and Great George. On the Queen Street, you can see we're planning a new facade for the street, and I'll show you an elevation of that in a moment. Then on the Fitzroy Street, there would both be a retail component and an entrance for the residential component. We would plan on formalizing the alley that is behind the Old Triangle Irish Ale House to be a service drive to serve all of the components of the new development, not only the residential for move in and move out, but also a back of house to support a potential for a cafe or restaurant pavilion and the retail back of house. The large retail space would address George Street between the Cedars property and the properties to the south towards Launchpad. This is our typical parking floor. On the left-hand side is the existing garage, and on the right-hand side is the expanded flat slab parking deck. One of the advantages of our proposal is we take advantage of the existing ramping system of the parking garage to get us up and create flat slabs for the expanded parking levels. Again, the floors above, so those floors were for level 2, 3, and 4. Then as we move to the floor above, 5, 6, 7, and 8, we've planned for right now about 10 residential components, residential units on each floor. When we look at this from the exterior, we have the east elevation, which is the elevation along Great George Street. What you can see is we're trying to take a strategy of both addressing the street with a sympathetic, complementary heritage-style facade on the parking garage and the retail component on the left-hand side. Then we're envisioning something new and sparkly for the cafe pavilion in the center next to the Old Triangle's patio. And then you can see the building further in the back. When we look at the massing of the building, you can see the 4-story parking garage is in line with much of the massing along Great George Street. And along Fitzroy, we're proposing 8 stories, which is very similar to the Hamburg Financial Tower. So again, we have included a north elevation, which emphasizes the at-grade retail and residential entrance with a good amount of transparency, the parking facade above for the first 3 floors, and then activating the upper 4 floors of residential with balconies and windows. On the parkade, what we're proposing is a replacement of the precast panels, which are at the edge of slab. We've done some early investigations with RJC based on their experience on with the garage, and they feel that those can be removed without impacting the structural integrity of the building. We then propose that we would put a new brick front up with openings to allow for open openings for air to come into the parking garage. We would probably reglaze the stair tower, redo the finishes inside. But you can see we're trying to create a character and a cadence of the space that is very similar to what you see already on Queen Street, including the building that we're in with the arches. So that takes us to kind of our closing remarks on it. The key piece we want to do is, we want to emphasize is the important role of the Queen Street Parkade in serving the needs of the downtown. The parking garage is a necessity to support the businesses in the downtown core. This is a building that needs to be addressed from a restoration perspective. It's a need to be addressed by the city of Charlottetown. At the same time, there's an opportunity to create greater parking downtown through our additional 140 spots, additional permanent housing downtown through our potential 40 units, and also create greater resilience for infrastructure, because we look at opportunities to move some of those power data elements underground. So again, we hope that our proposal will spur further high-quality development in the core as we look to move this project forward. And that, Chris, did I miss anything?
No, I think you've hit on everything. I think perhaps the one thing is we haven't highlighted enough is we've been speaking to, a lot of the electric wires, the data wires, the district heating element. District heating not so much, but it really hit home during Fiona. Like, all of the data lines run through our properties, and when I came down after the storm, one of the trees was leaning over against one of the buildings, and the main data line for all of Charlottetown was hanging on it. And I just stopped everybody. I said, do not touch that tree. And I called Maritime Electric and the data people, and they said if that fell, there'd be no data. Nothing at City Hall, nothing. All the businesses, there'd be no internet. So I went, we've got to deal with this like now. We've been dealing with it over the years. We've let all the utilities go over our land for years and years and years, and we're okay with that. But at some point, with these greater storms, we have to deal with it in a way that they can move it and adjust it. It'd be great to get some of the power lines down if we could. So that's something that's come out of this project as a highlight that wasn't even on the agenda, but it's very, very important. And we own full strip, so if we can help with that, we're prepared to, and they're very happy, of course, that we're willing to do that. And so it's just one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
So, Chris, Philip, we're going to open it up to some questions from councillors and staff if they have any questions. Councillor Mattard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. It seems certainly intriguing and, a significant project for that area. I'm curious to what consideration was given in regard to the impact of existing properties and businesses within that. I'm looking out there because it's right outside the door here, the square of which we're dealing with. Or are we just not at that stage right now at the concept, but how would that have an impact on those existing businesses, properties in that area?
Well, hopefully not too much. I mean, Palmer Lowe will be in charge of managing the site, and so they will make sure that everything is worked out and carefully taken care of. I don't think there'd be an issue.
Yeah, could I ask kind of a follow-up to your question? Are you saying the construction impacts during the construction period, or if the proposed residential building will impact surrounding businesses like the Homburg and the BDC Tower?
No, I think it was more, at this point, obviously, construction will undoubtedly have an impact on everything in downtown in that sense. But, when I visualize the surrounding area, there are some, I would have to assume, heritage-style buildings that are located on the left side of the thing. And then moving down Kent Street, there are some other buildings there as well. So, and then on the front of Great George, there are some heritage-style buildings there as well. So just in the way of how this concept all fits within that and how those impacts would be on height versus some of these buildings, how they incorporate into each other. I know that, those concept drawings don't really address that in the concept drawing to some degree, but also, just in way of, mass around all of this particular area now. So I think that was the impact that I was thinking more along the lines of.
No, so I think when I talked about our concurrent processes, and I spoke a little bit of the design of the new residential building, I talked about a planning portion. So we would work with your staff here at the city, in particular planning, to best understand areas where we may need some setbacks if required, or if there's any input from heritage from that perspective. So we would work this. This is what we're presenting today is a sketch based on what we were able to put together in a few weeks. But it would be a multi-month process with your staff to achieve both planning approval and site plan approval for the project.
Councillor Peck.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris and Phil. I'm certainly, I think it's great that we're having this discussion. I think it's an exciting possibility here for Charlottetown, and it's fun. Really, I think it's good news. So thank you for that. I guess I know all the details have not been worked out. I just want to go into your. I had one of the questions about, I didn't quite understand what you were getting at with the utilities, so thank you for explaining that. I see what you mean, and I see that as a definite benefit as well, too, and I concur with you on that, Chris. When you're looking at the 40 units, in your preliminary ideas or preliminary thoughts, what are you looking for? When I was looking at the sketches or the renderings, it looked like there were varying sizes of units in there. What kind of dimensions, square footage are you looking at? Like if you were saying like from smaller to larger, what kind of,
Unit mix.
yeah,
You're asking
mix,
what-
yeah.
what
So,
type-
and the other part is, I guess it'd be a two-part question. That'd be kind of the square footage size, and the other is are they fully market, mix of affordable and market, or what, any thoughts around that? Just a couple questions.
Jonas, I could speak first to the unit size. So as we're in the very preliminary design, we're just putting together a proposal. You can see there's various areas of units. We haven't determined the unit mix yet, but we have allowed for their opportunity to be bachelor, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms based on the size of that. Again, also the elevation is notional. So we know we want to provide views and daylight and air. So that's the windows and the balconies. But more detail about the number of units, how large they are, we don't have that at this level of design. But it would be something we would endeavor to address in the future.
I think in terms of use, it's a very interesting question, how the housing is applied or used. There is so much need for housing of every single type right now in Charlottetown. And we need to better nail down how we best help with that. I mean, you could build 10 units of this amount of housing and not solve all the issues. But there are many, many types of housing that need to be addressed. There needs to be affordable housing. There needs to be housing for single people. There needs to be housing for retired people. There needs to be housing for handicapped people, and there needs to be housing for long-term care. And we're still trying to sort out how, if it's the best approach to try and take and solve some of that for each group or focus on one group. And so we are talking to people who know a lot more about social needs right now in Charlottetown, and there are lots of them, and we experience that through our other buildings. We have a lot of interface now with well, I'm not going to bring up all the issues in downtown Charlottetown, but there are a lot of issues we deal with random people all the time. And so it is a very important part of what we're discussing in the next phase, how to best use this housing. And do we focus on one group, or do we try and integrate a couple of groups? And so, it's very important. We're not neglecting that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that.
Good. Any more questions while we have David, or Chris, and Philip here? Councillor McAleer.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Very, very interesting, exciting possibilities for the city and the property. You talk about the data lines and the district heating. Would it be the expectation that you would have your project plug into district heating?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it was my father, I think. Yeah, it was my father who was the first person to sign on to district heating. When they came, they needed one person. And so the old gift shop building was the first building, and then across the street was the second, and then even in the mall, we own a number of buildings that connect to the mall. Even ours are on a separate thing. We love working with district heating. We think the whole concept of it, the original concept in particular, to get rid of waste was great. They have to work on that a little bit more these days because the demand is so big. But yes, we've been in discussions with them about this for sure.
Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Chris, did I understand you to say in your opening remarks, and it just was kind of quick in passing, that regarding the ownership of the parkade, that would it be your wish, expectation, or hope that this comes to pass and happens, that the ownership of the parkade would fall to you, or?
And we're well aware of the city's obligations under the parkade. We're not approaching that as owning the parkade at this time.
Councillor Bernard.
I mean, I'm always in conversation with the people who have the right of first refusal on the parkade. We have a very open dialogue. My approach has always been in Charlottetown, since I've been working here quite a lot over the last 12 years, that everybody should chip in and kind of work together. So there used to be a lot of friction among the various landowners downtown, and now we meet regularly and discuss how we're doing, how they're doing. If they have somebody we can house, if I have somebody they can house. We have a very friendly relationship. They've seen all of our plans from day one, each phase. We've discussed it. We've discussed collaboration. And so just to put your mind at ease, we're not trying to scoop the parking garage.
Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chris and Philip, for the presentation. Very interesting. I have to say, I like the idea of the brickwork on the outside for the facade. I like the idea of having the extra parking. I'm just wondering if you guys have any cost estimates of what the housing units would rent for? Or are they condos for sale, or are they going to be rental?
Again, we don't know what community they will serve yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've actually approached the province about if they have any interest in. I mean, we haven't any answers, but we're trying to talk to everybody and see how they can best be used. So we can't possibly give you any answer until we price this out.
Okay, and I'll probably open a can of worms with this question, but I'm just wondering, it looked like your proposal was basically 10 units per floor. You're looking at 4 floors of units for your 40 units. Mm-hmm. Was there any discussion on possibly going to 10 stories? 2 more floors?
Well, I think that's an interesting idea, but we're trying to follow the guidelines of the city, what's happened in the city. I mean, we'd be happy to add more. Yeah.
Okay. Again, it's a nice looking proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more? Councillor Duran, Councillor McKinnon? No? Deputy? Yeah. So, Philip and Chris, the whole parking issue, that's, with Dine Holdings, that's all being worked out. I know this really fits with HAF, which is the Housing Accelerator Fund, more densification down in the city core, so it fits very well with what we're trying to do in terms of increase the, what is it, Eleanor, the net residential density in the city.
Yeah, well, we're on board with doing that. It'd be great to have lots of people living downtown. Phil and I are both experienced with housing. I've had a lot of focus on housing in my career. I recently came back from Copenhagen. I was invited to be part of a Canadian delegation to see how they work with housing, social housing, integrating housing. It was remarkable what they've done. I'd love to see more of that here in Charlottetown. And yeah, we're working away.
So Eleanor, the next phase is to meet with our new Director of Finance Administration and Economic Development. What's the next stage in this process?
Thank you, Worship. Actually, that would have been a good question for Mr. Adams. Wayne, do you have any next steps for the process?
I believe that it was the information will be taken back to the committee and then eventually come back to a council for further discussion. I believe that's what the manager.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here at last minute. He intended to be. Thank you.
Okay, good. Chris Tweel, Philip Goodfellow, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. So I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor McTaggart, second by Councillor Ramsey. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.